Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me tonight is Lyle Blackburn. He's the author of The Beast of Boggy Creek. It's also known by another name, and I had that right in front of me earlier. And I think it's the Folk Ranch Monster, and I'll let him correct me because I don't have it in front of me now. Yeah, the true story of the Folk Monster, F-O-U-K-E. So I was pretty close, is what it's also known as. And I'm not sure I think, where this here is taking place is exactly where Boggy Creek is. I've read in his description, but I'm not going down the whole thing. I'm kind of glancing over it. But he's also going to be appearing at the Paranormal Summit, the 2012 Paranormal Summit, that I've been mistakenly calling the Sacramento Ufo Conference. But I'm just leaving that in the title so it don't confuse people and correcting it live at the beginning of the show like I am right now. If y'all want to learn more about that, y'all can go to http, well, it's easier to say www.sacufocon.com, and it's got a list of all the speakers and, you know, the rates, the tickets, everything you need to know. Pardon me, folks. Little frog in my throat. If you come down underneath the show descriptions, about 2 blocks, 3 blocks down, you'll see the big banner, and it's linked over to that site. They have a audio with George Norrie playing in the background, so you may not want to go to it until after the show, so it don't interfere with the show, because I've made that mistake during the live show. If you want to learn more about tonight's guest, Lyle, you can go to www.monstrobizarro.com, and he's got all the information up about his book and, you know, what he's anything I'm sure he has going on, any articles and what have you. And I really recommend you do that. I'll be putting the link in the chat room here in just a few minutes. And also don't forget to invite your friends to come by www.paranormalpalace.com. I know that some people will listen at Shoutcast and iTunes and YouTube and other places, but if they come here live, they can join us in chat. So don't forget to have everybody come over here, tell them about the show, tell them about the chat room, let them know that sign up is free, and let's get a chat room built up and instead of having mostly archive listeners. So, Lyle, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'm sad to say that I never really knew much about the Beast of Boggy Creek, like I was telling you earlier, until Anthony Sanchez was telling me he has this conference coming up and asking me to interview some of you guests. And also, for the listeners out there, I'm supposed to be I'm supposed to be present via Skype to ask questions to the speakers at the actual event itself, unless plans change. And I hope y'all forgive me. I know I'm not up to my usual part tonight. I'm a little bit distracted. My mind seems to be freezing up on me as I'm going along for some reason. So I'm hesitating before I speak, which I don't usually do. Hopefully that'll clear up over the next couple of days. Maybe it's just the weather. I don't know. At any rate, like I say, if y'all have any questions, and anybody has any questions for Lyle or for any of the other speakers at the conference, send them to me. Have them send them to me. I got a feedback form right here on the site. Look in the menu on the left. Also, my email is redneckradioman@comcast.net. If y'all want to send it to me, or even give out the email to people who might want to send questions. So, Lyle, like I was saying earlier, I was kind of hoping to learn a little bit about this here Boggy Creek monster, or the Beast of Boggy Creek. As I understand from Anthony, this is something, or I think it was you maybe, of a Bigfoot monster in the Arizona area, was it?
No, it's out of Arkansas. It's most famous, dramatized by the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek. I take it you haven't seen the movie?
No, I haven't seen the movie. I wasn't even aware there was a movie out.
Oh, well, this happened back in the 70s, and among the cryptozoology community, the legend of Boggy Creek is really one of the most influential pieces of the subject that has inspired a lot of the cryptozoologists. Famous writers like Warren Coleman, who's written many Bigfoot books and other unexplained mystery books. He was originally inspired by this movie in the 70s, just the list goes on as far as most cryptozoologists who are probably, I guess, above the age of about 30 can probably, tell you their favorite memories of the movie. But so essentially, it's called the Fouke Monster, and it's associated with a little town called Fouke, which is in southwest Arkansas. It's near Texarkana, which is just across the Texas border. It's technically it dwells in the Arkansas boundaries, but really for us Texans, it's pretty much a regional monster. And I guess I don't know if you want me to just tell a little bit of the back history or just how this got started.
I think that would help.
Yeah, bring up to speed and everybody else, because like yourself, some people don't know much about it, and then you have people who know quite a bit. So it ranges all across the board. But basically, the gist of the story is back in the early 70s, there began to be some reports in the local Texarkana Gazette newspaper of a Bigfoot type creature that had been seen in the area. It was described as a 7-foot-tall, ape-like creature that walked on 2 legs. It had dark fur, 3 or 4 inches long, and was assumed to dwell in the swampy areas of southern Arkansas. And so as these quite dramatic stories began to appear in the Texarkana Gazette, it became quite a regional phenomenon. And that, brought forth some of the old timers who said, this isn't the first time we've had reports of this creature. In fact, back in the 60s, there was a rash of sightings nearby, and in some cases, there's sightings that dated back all the way to the early 1900s. So, as these stories kind of came out in the newspaper, and there were more sightings and some footprints found, this attracted a local Arkansas filmmaker by the name of Charles Pierce, who came in and filmed and directed a movie which was released as The Legend of Boggy Creek in 1972. The film became a huge hit back in the 70s. I mean, he spent about $160,000 to make the movie, and it went on to make $25 million. And it was very popular in the theater and in the drive-in circuit. Back in the 70s, drive-ins are big, and so this brought a whole new level of fame to the Fouke Monster, and kind of caused a huge backlash in the little town of Fouke, and there's a whole backstory to that. But basically, there was several sequels to the Boggy Creek movie. There was 2 made like last year. So these movies keep coming out. But really the definitive one is The Legend of Boggy Creek, the original. And like I said, that inspired a lot of Bigfooters back in the 70s, and even today, I mean, it inspires people. And I was one of those kids who saw it back in sometime in the late 70s maybe, and being that it's a Bigfoot type creature from this area just really grabbed my attention. So I long story short, ended up researching the subject and found out there was still many, many sightings in the area up until today. So it obviously made a good subject for a book, and I did that and published my book, The Beast of Boggy Creek, back in March on Anomalous Books. So it's been, well received, and I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements and interviews and so forth on the subject. So that's the summary there.
So it's still active today, these Bigfoots in Boggy Creek.
Right. And that was, I think a lot of people who know this subject or even know the Boggy Creek Monster generally kind of think that, that was cool. That all happened in the 70s and they made a movie. Well, I kind of was under that impression too when I set out to research the subject, really as an article as part of the magazine I work for. I was going to kind of write a retrospective, but then I quickly realized that that the story has continued. It just hasn't. Most people just aren't aware of it, and so as I began to go up and interview people in the town and looking into all of it, I realized, there is definitely sightings that have occurred up until today, and there's a good history of sightings since the 70s. So it's a very current subject, as well as it has the historical aspect to it, as far as the story. So,
have you actually went out in the woods and tried to sight one yourself, or get any footprints, or take any pictures, or anything else of that nature?
Yeah, I've done a lot of Bigfoot research around Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and all that area on my own, and specifically in the case of the Fouke Monster, I've been up there, many times in that area, not only just to be familiar with it, because I'm basically a journalist, so to write the book, I need to understand the area from which the creature allegedly dwells. So, but yeah, in the process of my research, I did go out, many times up there, and I guess, try to get a glimpse of it myself, or just get a lay of the land in the area.
Well, what I really wonder about in the case of Bigfoots, and it's not just in my area, your area, or any particular area per se, is the fact being that, to my knowledge, out of the Bigfoot shows I have seen, the authors I've talked to, the researchers, etc., the one thing that I keep noticing is everything seems to be found, like footprints and near pictures, food taken, all kinds of, evidence, except no one that I know of has actually found a habitat for one of these. And you would think, even if it's hard to catch the actual creature, that they would be just like humans. They'd need some kind of habitat, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's certainly a good argument on the side of logic. Certainly it would seem as though you could find that sort of evidence. But on the other hand, there is some fairly credible footprints that have been found, some hair samples, and of course most of this is based on the sighting reports, which span through many states in the U.S. and go back many, many years. And I haven't personally seen a Bigfoot, but I do have very, very good, very trusted friends who have had some very clear sightings, and so I have to kind of just use that as my incentive to keep looking, because sometimes logic works against the plausibility of these things being real, but on the other hand, you can't disprove it, until we can either bring out a body or something else. So who knows? Right.
And, with them being out in the woods and all of that, if they did pass away, wouldn't take long before nature would take over and they'd decompose. And after that point, it'd be hard to recognize from any other skeleton out there.
Yeah.
I mean, other than like a bear or something like that, but I mean any other primate, for example.
Sure. I mean, and that's the thing. A lot of people who, when you write about subjects that are Bigfoot or whatever, people, it often comes up in conversation, and people say, how in the world could any creature like that hide around here? There's highways and roads and cities, and when people like that just haven't been in the area, they do not understand that area up there, because the Fouke, Arkansas, is pretty much sits right on the edge of the Sulphur River bottoms, which the expanse out there of remote and rugged swamplands is huge, and it's heavily forested. It's uninhabitable. There's 20,000 acres in the Sulphur Wildlife Management Area that people just don't set foot. You can't develop it. I mean, it's boggy and marshy, and there's plenty of room back there that a small population of creatures could exist if they were clever enough and reclusive enough, and they stayed back in the, for the most part, back in that area. They could exist and nobody would ever see them. So, people just don't realize how much forested area there is. And
sounds like it's with all the marsh or the mud in that, it's hard to forage that kind of area for food, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it just depends on if a creature is adapted to that area, because there's definitely plenty of food. Because when you have water, you definitely have an abundance of food. I mean, you've got, assuming they're omnivorous, there's turtles and beavers and every kind of small animal running through there. There's, plenty of plant life and tubers, and there's a considerable amount of things they could feed on. So, even though it's a swampy area, it's not, that doesn't say that it's just completely covered in water. It's just
right.
It's boggy and marshy, and, you'd have to navigate the areas of land. But
are there any mountains in the area?
No, it's not mountainous there. It's, it's, like I said, it's just across the border of Arkansas, so it's, it's about as mountainous as it is here in Texas. So,
I take it that there's not a heck of a lot of caves either.
No, there's not a cave network. So, I think given the Bigfoot evidence at large, these creatures sort of, don't normally take up habitat in the same area or build too many shelters or things. They just sort of exist like, day by day, sleeping here and sleeping there. So, this area wouldn't offer caves or anything as a permanent shelter.
Yeah, it sounds like that could be part of what makes them hard to trace. And maybe another part is they don't sound very communal.
Right. Yeah, I think, if you take the sightings for what they are, in the case of, just general Bigfoot sightings or Fouke monster, it's often the creatures are seen one at a time. It's very rare that they're seen in pairs or more than that. So we would have to logically assume that they're fairly solitary, which, yes, makes it even harder, because when one of those creatures moving through there can easily, see a human or smell a human coming long before we ever see them, and they can duck out of the way. It's only those rare occasions when they cross a county road or something, or get caught in the headlights for a brief moment, that they really get caught off their guard,
Yeah, not to mention the fact if the, the trees out in the area have really thick branches, they could possibly find ways to make their beds up high in the treetops where you know, people don't look a lot and there's heavy foliage and they could blend in with it and they could be sitting up in trees just watching you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm, you know, from some of the more dramatic sightings from some of my trusted friends, you know, I give these creatures a lot of credit, and that they can, you know, they can blend in, and yeah, they could be sitting in a tree and you'd never see them, you know, if they didn't want you to, because, you know, that is their habitat. They are experts. They are the true, you know, naturalists, and they would have to be if they were going to remain elusive this long. Otherwise, if they were sort of, you know, clumsy or not clever, then certainly we would have rounded up at least a few of them by now.
Yeah, you would think so. And I mean, the sightings they're really basically worldwide. I mean, it doesn't matter if you call them a Yeti and they're white, or a Sasquatch, a Bigfoot, a skunk ape, or, you know, the Beast of Boggy Creek or whatever. They're still all pretty much the same thing, or big hairy creatures. Or actually, one guy I know that's a researcher likes to call them the big hairy people.
Yeah. I mean, certainly they can kind of be lumped into that same thing. There's diversity, but yeah, I call them wood apes just because that's our, you know, kind of a new term that came up, but you could call them anything. And you know, certainly, I mean, even people have, you know, the Yeti is typically associated with the Himalayas, and they're white, but there's been sightings of gray and white and silver Bigfoot in the States, so it's hard to figure out if they're somewhat related or you know, different species. Hard to tell.
Yeah, that is really kind of hard to tell. I mean, for us with, say, dogs and cats, sometimes different colorings of the hair is an indication of a different breed, but that's not the only factor, you know, we go by. And I'm pretty sure the same rule would apply to the, you know, Bigfoots. And, you know, really, who knows what they really are? Because, I mean, Bigfoot was just a term coined by somebody somewhere in the past for wanting something better to call them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Because you have so many regional names, and you know, if you look into the Native American legends or beliefs, they all had a name for what was essentially called the hairy man or giant hairy man, and it, you know, those were once Bigfoot hit the papers in 1958. That just sort of stuck, and that became sort of like, you know, saying, hey, I want a Coke. Well, in Texas, we say we want a Coke, but that might mean you want a Dr. Pepper or a Mr. Pibb, you know. So Bigfoot just became a synonymous term for all big, hairy, bipedal, ape-like creatures. But certainly there's a lot of regional names. And, you know, like in the case of the Fouke monster, you know, people ask me, do you think it's a Bigfoot? I'm like, well, it's certainly got to be related in some way. It's the same type of creature, even though it's called the Fouke monster. You know, there's other regional names like, you know, Caddo Lake in East Texas. There was a creature called the Caddo Critter. There was a Chambers Creek monster, the Lake Worth monster. So there's always a kind of a regional name that people give them, but essentially these are classified as Bigfoot cryptids, you know.
Have you by any chance had a chance to talk to any of the local natives in Arizona about this and see if they had any information could be helpful?
Well, again, it's Arkansas as we're talking about, and there's really no Native Americans in that part of Arkansas.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay, I did learn something.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's just across the border by Texarkana, which is just near us.
Texarkana. Isn't Texarkana in Texas?
Both. It's in Arkansas. It's half of Texarkana is in Texas, half of it's in Arkansas. And, well, it's technically Texarkana is Louisiana. It's very close to Louisiana, but it's technically...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I used to when I was 16, stayed with my mother up there in Logansport, Louisiana. I don't know if you ever heard of that little town or not. I mean, it had a main drag about 2 blocks long. If you sneezed, you passed right through it.
Yeah.
But it was just the other side of Joaquin. I mean, you're going through Joaquin, Texas, and just the other side of the bridge there, the Mississippi River right by Joaquin, Texas, is Logansport, the very first town you come into, which is how you recognize it without passing it. But Texarkana is really not that far from Joaquin.
Right. Yeah, that's all pretty much in the area. So that's, you know, essentially this creature, like I said, even though it's Arkansas, it's just pretty much a you know, kind of a shared by Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas. And in most cases, there's been a lot of the news stations in Shreveport, Louisiana, will do a lot of coverage. They just did a 40th year anniversary special on the making of the Legend of Boggy Creek movie, because Shreveport is essentially the news stations for Texarkana, because Texarkana's not quite big enough to have their own. But yeah, all that's kind of lumped into that, to the border areas. So
I had no idea when I was up there that I was anywhere near Bigfoot territory.
Yeah, and I mean, if you were into Bigfoot research, I mean, the Falk is like one of the holy shrines of Bigfoot. I mean, it's just, you know, almost everybody that I know that's into this type of research to any extent, you know, knows of Falk, and many of them have been there, you know, just simply because it's kind of beloved. And in fact, I was quite surprised that nobody had ever written a book on this whole subject, being that the Legend of Boggy Creek had so much popularity, and all that influenced so many cryptozoologists. I couldn't believe nobody had written a book on it. You know, it's like,
are there any research groups out in the area that are trying to get out there and get anywhere with it?
Yeah, there's there's many of the local groups that have done research in the area. I mean, the Texla, Mid-America Bigfoot Research, Texas Bigfoot Research Conservancy, Gulf Coast Bigfoot Research Organization. All those groups have, gone into the Falk area at one time or another, because it's considered to be a pretty plausible area for these creatures to exist. So I've been up there sometimes and, met a group of guys, and there was quite a few groups represented among those. So it's kind of a hub of I guess, Bigfoot research.
Well, I know that from my time in Louisiana, it gets a lot darker there than it does here in, say, Houston, and probably even in Fort Worth in your area. I mean, you kill those lights, and I mean, talk about boondocks dark. You ain't, you can strike a lighter right smack in front of you, and you ain't going to see nothing other than the fire of that lighter. It ain't going to hardly illuminate any area around itself, in other words.
Oh yeah, you're right. I mean, you get out of the big cities like these that we're in, and yeah, you quickly it gets darker and the trees get thicker, and definitely it's a whole nother place. And Falk, Arkansas, the population is like 800 people, so it's very small. It was 500 people back in the 70s when the movie was made. So it's a very small town with a big legend, but yeah, very, very, small town, and nestled in the backwoods down there, so.
Yeah, I was mentioning how dark it was there because the thought occurs to me, if people are out there looking for Bigfoot at night, they're going to have a heck of a time trying to find it. And I mean, if they light up the woods with any good lights, and Bigfoot doesn't want to be seen, well, they're going to see the lights are not going to come nowhere near. If you leave it in the dark, well, you ain't going to see diddly squiddly to begin with, and either way, you're just at SOL.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's the odds are stacked against you because it's dark, it's hard, it's hard to maneuver into the to the deeper areas. So it's the cards are against you if you're just generally going out there and looking. So it's not quite as easy as just going out and seeing one. It's a lot of luck as well. And a lot of the sightings. Most of the sightings of this creature were made by locals who lived in those areas that had houses nestled back on these county roads way back in there. And, those were the majority of the people that were making sightings, the people that lived there, that were there the most often, as opposed to, Bigfoot researchers going to look around. That was, those are not the majority of sightings.
Also, from most of the research I've done in this here, and you'd probably know more than me, it seems like Bigfoot does seem to be more active at night than he is during the day.
Yeah, it seems that way. I mean, most theories that these creatures are nocturnal, which is kind of the antithesis of what you would think a primate would be, because primates aren't nocturnal. So, but it could possibly be an adaptation, to protect themselves. And it is, it's hot here, especially in the South. I mean, it's freaking hot, roam around fully covered in hair during the day. You just burn up. I mean, like wild hogs, they don't, they come out at night, and I would think a creature like this would too. And then that seems to be backed up by the sighting evidence, because most people see it at night. Yeah.
Which is also a good reason to be somewhere near water.
And that too. I mean, you definitely, if you kind of lay out the sightings on a map of the Texas and Arkansas area, the majority of sightings occur in areas where there's more than 42 inches of rainfall per year. And of course, that also corresponds with how much, woodland there is in the area, as opposed to the drier areas in West Texas, which you don't have a lot of Bigfoot sightings out there, if any. But there's definitely some in East Texas, and I think people don't realize that Texas is second only to Alaska in the number of square miles of forestry. There is heavy forest in East Texas, and as you know, in Louisiana and all through there, and there's even a Sam Houston National Forest down closer to you is one of the highest numbers of sightings of Bigfoot creatures in the state.
Now, I wasn't aware of that, but I do know there's a lot of forestry, especially when you're getting close to the Texas, Louisiana area up through there, back when you get up into the boonies. There's miles upon miles upon miles of wooded area, huge areas, humans, Bigfoots, anything wanted to go up in there and get lost. Matter of fact, I'm sure people went up there, got lost, couldn't find their way out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, a place like the Big Thicket in East Texas is very dangerous. And, just hiking 5 miles into the Big Thicket is a life or death situation. I mean, it is rugged and hard to maneuver through there, and you'll quickly become dehydrated if you don't have enough water. And, it's, humans just, can't go in some of these areas, and, the outskirts of these type of areas are where you'll find the most Bigfoot sightings, which seems to either be coincidental or it's dead on, because those forested areas are where you find the Bigfoot sightings. And, same case for the Fount Monster. It's the same kind of terrain, and it spreads on up there to Arkansas, and, a lot of sightings out there.
Well, see, they got an advantage over us. We're spoiled. We want our cooked hamburger meat bought from the store and our chicken already prepared. All we got to do is take it out to the campsite and cook it there, or, what have you. We want our comfortable tents and beds, or for us, that's roughing it. But for these Bigfoot creatures, They live in the woods without any tent, without any prepared food of any kind. Talk about Robinson Crusoe, not a single luxury. And to them, they're not even roughing it. That's just the way of life. That means they can go as far up into them woods as they bloody well please. It doesn't even matter if they get lost. Eventually, they'll find some form of activity if they want to. And in the meantime, they're right in the middle of their home anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like bears or cougars or anything else. They're just on their own against nature, and they're true survivalists, And if we project that Sasquatch creatures have any sort of higher intelligence, above your average cougar, say, man, they can live off that land and survive. It's possible. It is something that's possible.
Oh yeah, it's definitely possible. And see, that's what I'm thinking is part of the reason why they're so hard to find is because they could be up in the trees when you're looking on the ground. They could be further into the woods than what you are. You could be friggin' lost compared to what they are. And all of these factors, if you add them together, would really explain why it's so hard to find one. Even if they didn't care if you found them, they could be further away than what you think and not even trying to.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be pretty easy, not even hard to try, and they could be evasive. And, in some of these areas, even when you're driving down the road, I've driven a lot of county roads up there in Arkansas, and I mean, in the summertime, you can't see 10 feet off the side before the undergrowth takes over. I mean, something could be standing there watching you drive by. You never see it. You just simply never see it because it's so thick and overgrown, And that's just near the county road. That's not even saying we're going, 10 miles off down into the backwoods. So, yeah, definitely. And a lot of the sightings are by hunters, coincidentally, the ones that are willing to kind of get off the roads a little bit more than most people. And sure enough, the hunters are a lot of the times the ones that are getting these sightings,
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised because the hunters have a tendency to go a little further in because, I mean, most of the times I've been hunting, most animals do seem to hang out further into the woods than they do closer to cities because most animals have a natural fear of humans and of cities and, highways and things like that. And most of them, the biggest majority, well, yeah, sure, you'll find some in the outer fringes, but you'll find the bigger majority further in, which is why hunters go further in.
Right, yeah. I mean, the smarter, the bigger the buck, big bucks and things like that, they know what they're doing, and they're staying away from people. You might see some little fawns or does or something like that near the road, but, the big bucks, the smarter animals are, they're further back. They know. And, that's certainly what animals do.
The real question here is, though, do most Bigfoot researchers take all these things into account and try to compensate for it?
I think so. I mean, it depends on the individual. I mean, Bigfoot research is, the types of people that do it range all over. I mean, you don't get accredited at any school. You can just say one day I'm a Bigfoot researcher and do it. And you have a lot of people coming from different backgrounds. I mean, some people do it like, I call them weekend warrior Bigfoot hunters. They just, they park off the side of a road near some woods and start looking. And then you've got, the more the people trained in biology and zoology and people like that that are more skilled at tracking. Obviously, they know a little bit more where to go, where an animal might reside. And then, I come from more of a hunting background. I was raised as a hunter by my father. He's much more of a hunter than I am, but, my early childhood experience, we did a lot of hunting in Texas all over. And so I kind of look at this as whether you're trying to take a photo or shoot it or it doesn't matter. You still have to use hunting techniques to find these animals like you would any animal. So, Bigfoot researchers, I think, come from all directions and backgrounds, and some of them are better than others, I think, at pursuing animals,
That very well could be. I know my brother-in-law Jerry's a hunter, and he would be probably pretty good. Well, he was when he was amongst us anyway. But, yeah, right now, I'd have to agree with you that some of the ones with hunting backgrounds would probably have a little bit better a chance. Now, can you kind of give us a brief summary of your book, kind of give us an idea what all it covers without giving away the candy store, so to speak?
Sure. The way I did it, and I think the reviews of the book and just judging by the even the reviews on Amazon or whatever, the approach I took paid off, because what I tried to do, I didn't want to do a typical Bigfoot book where I just, here's a sighting, here's another sighting, and there's just a big, bunch of unrelated sightings crammed together. What I did was, I tried to weave this into a cohesive story because, it did have some good elements. At some point a big movie was made. You had the social aspect because of what happened to Falk, Arkansas, and what happened to that little town. And the town itself was fascinating, just how it was formed. And so what I did was just sort of give you an overview of the area that it's in Arkansas, sort of paint a picture of the environment, to give people a way to put themselves in that environment. And then I started, like I mentioned, in the 70s, the newspaper reports started coming out. So I just kind of take it up right there. And then I kind of go back and give you the back history of the older sightings. And then I do a chapter on how the movie was made, which was another fascinating aspect. If people are, whether you like horror movies or just the interesting story of how movies are made, it's very interesting how he was able to do that back in the 70s. Kind of a do-it-yourself kind of movie that ended up doing very well. So there's a chapter on the movie, and then, once the movie hit, like I said, the creatures now got a lot of fame, and now what happens to the town? You had, they had Little Rock, Arkansas was putting out bounties on the radio, like $10,000 dead or alive for this creature, and people were just overtaking the town down there with guns and running amok in the woods down there, tromping all over people's private property. It was quite a crazy thing, just a phenomenon going on. And then, towards the end of the 70s, it kind of quieted down and goes back into the shadows. And then I was able to interview a lot of people and bring up a lot of sightings that nobody's ever heard. These weren't in the movies. These weren't in the newspapers. And I was able to talk to a lot of locals. There was sightings in the 90s in which 5 or more people at one time, this happened twice, that saw the creature. So twice, a group of more than 5 people saw it at once. Some really amazing sightings. So I give you the details on all those, and then basically bring that up to the current time and tell you a little bit about my research, and then I go into address some of the popular theories over the years that people have proposed to explain this. And there's the typical circus train theory, which people always throw out there for these kind of creatures. It was a circus train that crashed, and apparently upright apes ran amok. I'm saying, I'm like, but I would, looked into the possibility where were the circus train routes, were there any newspaper reports of crashes. There was other theories. People proposed that moonshiners had created this monster to keep people out of the stills over there. And again, I kind of take that to its end and decide whether it was even possible for moonshiners to purport such a thing, in which it's really impossible. I mean, and other theories, that it would. Some people thought that a lot of these sightings were actually Black Panthers. The cat, not the group. Just crazy stuff like that. So I explore all these theories, and then I sort of just bring it home to current times and give you a little bit about what Falk looks like and all that. So that's kind of the gist of where the book goes. I mean, people can, if you look on my falkmonster.net site, you can get a lot more information on the book and see a lot of reviews that'll speak better than me about the book. But the response has been just overwhelmingly good about the approach on the book, and people enjoyed it. So I think I did my job well. I tried to write a book that was both entertaining and respectful to the subject matter, and that brought all the pieces of the mystery to the table, and so that people could then judge for themselves whether they thought this was possible or they believed it or not. I don't steer it in any. I don't try to prove the case. I just offer the facts, and
right.
So that's kind of the gist of it.
Okay. Also, I didn't want to let you get out of here without double checking with you. Do you still have your Ghoultown band?
Yes, I still do. It's been I had to take some time off in the process of writing the book, and then ever since the book has come out in March, it's been just kind of crazy with book signings and speaking engagements and publicity for the book. So I haven't done a whole lot as far as music with Ghoultown, but the band's still around, and we're going to do some gigs this summer. So I'm still trying to juggle it all.
Sounds like you're one busy man.
Yeah, they believe.
Really quick, you could be a big help to me. While we were talking, my web host that I have my web page on evidently experienced some technical difficulty, and it don't appear to be coming back soon, and I can no longer access my chat room, so who knows who's in there, I guess nobody's in there because they probably had the same problem, and I can't access that banner to say who all is coming up. And I don't want to go to his site because it's going to have that sound file in the background. Do you have a list with you of the speakers at the event? You could kind of give everybody a briefing on that by any chance?
Yeah, I could do that. Let me run over here and look at the site. I can run down a few of the popular speakers here because, it's going to be a cool event. And again, that's happening this coming weekend. It's 16th.
The 17th.
And 17th. Pull this up and all. Yeah, okay, so June 16th and 17th in Sacramento, California, the Strange Lights presents the UFO Paranormal Summit. Summit's a great word and sound fancy. And some of the keynote speakers are going to be Bill Murphy, star of Fact or Fake Paranormal Files, of course, and even an appearance by George Norrie from Coast to Coast, which is going to be very cool because I was on that show not long ago, so it'd be kind of cool to meet him in person. Paul Bradford from Ghost Hunters International, and then Anthony Sanchez, who's put together the event. He's speaking. That should be interesting. And host of other awesome guys, Mel Fabregas, Scotty Roberts, Sherry Cassidy, Jay Wiedner, Micah Hanks, buddy of mine, David Weatherly, who wrote the Black-Eyed Children book, which is a very, very cool book.
Pardon my interrupting, but before I forget, he's going to be my guest tomorrow night.
Well, there you go. See.
But anyway, go ahead.
David's got a cool book, and Ed Grimley will be there, and a few more. So it's going to be a cool event again in Sacramento, California, coming up this weekend. Tickets are still available, and of course I'll be there, and I'll be doing a visual presentation on the case of the Fouke monster, and I'll have books and T-shirts and other things to sell, and be hanging out and representing Texas with my black hat on, above my black cowboy hat. But yeah, that's the gist of it. So I hope people.
Yeah, you got that definite outlaw look about you on your picture on your webpage.
yeah, kind of got that, I guess sort of from the band thing and whatever. So that's just become my look. So I just figured I'll be the outlaw author.
Okay, well, what kind of music do y'all sing?
We, rock and roll. I call it Tex-Mex rock and roll. It's kind of a blend of a lot of things. But people can go to ghoultown.com, GHOULTOWN.com, and check it out. Or there's links on my website. In fact, you can just go to lyleblackburn.com and see links to all the things I do. And the Fouke Monster site, Fouke, Fouke, monster.net, that has all the information on my book, and you can get links to buy it there directly from me, or on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, all that good stuff. So I encourage people to go check it out.
And I certainly would encourage them to do so as well. I've been to your website. It looks very fascinating, very interesting, and, it's new information on Bigfoot research that I think everybody could always, use new information. And, I kind of like the way you was telling me how you follow these debunking things out to their natural end to kind of give people an idea about how these people are really just guessing or coming up with something to explain things away, in other words.
Yeah, and I thought that was important to the book. I try to write it thinking of the questions that are going to come up that anybody who's reading this may ask themselves. So we have to follow those to their logical conclusions, whether they turn out to strengthen the case or not. It doesn't matter. It's that we need to follow those leads. And I think, even people who aren't, you don't really have to be a Bigfoot person to like the book. This is a very strange, unexplained mystery, basically. And it has a lot of aspects that are going to interest everybody. I kind of wrote it from the standpoint that anybody can enjoy this book. If you like strange creatures, you like unexplained phenomenon, you like creepy stories, you're going to enjoy it. So, I kind of wrote it to where everybody could get into it, rather than use a bunch of scientific language of cryptids and whatever. And I don't know, it's a very readable book. So I think it's paid off, judging by the reviews, at least.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to cover that I haven't thought to ask? Maybe book signings or upcoming events or workshops or anything else?
No, I think that's about it. I've done a lot of book signings, and this one this weekend is kind of going to be the last for at least a month or two. But people look at my site, you will see starting in September, I've got appearances in Oklahoma, then Arkansas, then Kentucky, and Kansas, back in Texas. So I'm all over the place. So bookmark lyleblackburn.com, and if I hit your area, come out and visit with me. So that probably covers about everything I'm doing so far, at least.
Well, you find yourself down in my neck of the woods down here in Houston, give me a holler. And hopefully by that time I'll have this frog out of my throat.
Yeah, good luck with that.
But, I want to thank you for coming on my show once again. I want to apologize to everybody who was at the site in the chat room when all of a sudden the chat room froze up. This is what tipped me off that something was amiss. It said there was an error and it was not updating, and I went to refresh the page and the page wouldn't reload, and that's when I'm like, oh. So it was froze up. Nobody could type to each other. Nobody could type a question, and when you refreshed it, there was no page to reload. So I want to apologize to you folks. I realize you can't hear the player at the page right now, but we continued this here on because it will be in the archives and it will be over at YouTube and Media Cafe and Daily Motion, so y'all still be able to hear the show in its entirety. Just may have to re-go over some of what you've already heard today, and I do apologize for that. However, we can't control, our web host and what happens with them. They could have had a power failure, and they were closed for all we know. So, that's just one of those things we learned to deal with. Lyle, I hope that you'll be one of the people I'll be asking questions to on the 16th or 17th. Like I say, unless, of course, Anthony's changed his plans, and I don't know it yet, about, being live there via Skype to join Jerry Pippins and asking questions to the speakers. And it's been a pleasure meeting you, and I hope we can stay in touch, and I'd love to have you back again in the future.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm down with that. Yeah, I hope to hear from you by Skype at the event, so hopefully that's on. But yeah, I'll keep in touch. We don't live that far away, so pretty cool.
Okay, well, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and call this one quits, and good luck with your wife and your blessed event that's coming up, and I hope it's pretty soon for you. I mean, I don't know how far along it is exactly. I think you said 8 months. You don't want it too early, but yeah, I think you know what I meant.
Right. Let's hope it waits till after this next weekend. I'll be out of town, so after that we're all good.
Well, my first one was like at least 2 weeks late, so you never can tell for sure.
Yeah, that's true. I just forge ahead and hope it all works out. So I'm sure it will. So I appreciate that.
I'm sure it'll work out. I got faith. Of course, I've already been through it. It's easier to have faith. But
yeah, see, you're speaking from authority there.
All righty. Well, you have a good one and take care of yourself. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Once again, I'd like to remind everybody, I can't tell you about anything other than World UFO Today because I remember that link's up at the right-hand page. I can tell you to go to the menu on the left and go down to Other, and underneath that you'll see the Friends and the Radio Favorites. You can click on those and check out the other links I got there. And don't forget to come see me tomorrow at the same time. I'm pretty sure by then the radio host will be back up. And David Weatherly will be talking to me about the Black-Eyed Children, which is going to be what he covers at the 2012 Paranormal Summit. And I hope to see you guys there. Don't forget to send me any questions for any of the speakers. Thank you very much.